Welcome to the podcast of the American Diversity Report, where we interview change makers and diverse innovators. I'm Deborah Levine, editor of the American Diversity Report and your host. And with me today is Manu Smadja, who is a former engagement manager at McKinsey & Company, where he focused on global financial inclusion and U.S. mass market banking. He has worked with top financial institutions in the U.S., Europe, and Africa. And prior to McKinsey, he worked in marketing strategy and operations at Capital One and Vistaprint. Manu holds an MBA as well as an MS in systems and information engineering and a BS in computer science. And he's going to be speaking to us today about international students in U.S. universities. Welcome, Manu.
Thank you so much, Deborah, and thank you for the kind introduction.
Oh, my pleasure. How lovely to speak to you. And I understand that you are not in the U.S. at the moment. You're talking to us from?
Talking to you from Delhi, New Delhi in India today.
I love it. I love it. Tell us a little bit about yourself so we know who Manu is.
Sure. I think there's different angles, but I think maybe the short story or the most relevant here is I'm originally an international student from France. I joke that I was always sort of a misfit or a minority everywhere I was, in that in France, I come from a Jewish Algerian background. So I was sort of a minority in my home country of France. Came to the US at the great age of 17 to study at the University of Virginia. And being an immigrant, I did okay academically, but struggled financially through school at UVA. Part of it is the lack of financial options for international students in America more broadly. And so, like a lot of immigrants in this country, I worked hard. I had 3 different jobs. I was a grader, tutor for math, physics, computer science, French. I was an indoor soccer referee, you name it, I did it. I pulled through with the help of my family, but it planted a seed in my head. I thought, why is it so hard to get access to financing for international students? And then, like you said, after graduation, I got the chance to work in consumer finance at Capital One, then worked in tech in Boston, went to Europe to INSEAD for an MBA, worked at McKinsey & Company in financial services and financial inclusion, spent a bit of time in West Africa and various places around the planet, where banks lend to people, but they don't always have the luxury of a centralized credit bureau like TransUnion or Equifax or Experian. And then the whole story came full circle for me almost a decade ago. This was in 2014, early 2014. A student from my alma mater at UVA reached out to me and a few other alumni, and he said the following. He said, "Hey guys, I'm $500 short on my rent this month. I'm going to get evicted, and I'm thinking about dropping out of school." And that really shook me, because here was a bright mechanical engineering student, a year and a half away from graduating, and he was about to drop out of school for $500. And I thought, how crazy is that? And how many more students are in that situation where they're compromising their future for sometimes very small sums of money relative to their future earning potential and their impact on society? God knows we need STEM talent in the US. And I thought, if we're letting down sort of this poster child of the student, again, close to graduating, great grades, first in his family to go to college, how many more students is the system letting down? And so I sent him $500, but as good as management consulting pay is, it wasn't enough for me to really solve this systemically, and it kept me up at night. I thought, how do we really solve this for the thousands and thousands of students who are in this situation? And it kept me up enough that I decided to leave my management consulting career behind me and start a social venture that would tackle this challenge of access to financing for immigrants in general. It started MPOWER with a co-founder of mine, Mike Davis, who I'd met at business school. And the two of us incorporate on April 1st, 2014, which we joke is the greatest April Fool's joke ever. And it was just really the two of us, a lot of ambition / naivete, some really ugly PowerPoint slides 9 years ago. And today we're a 200-person company that finances about $100 to $200 million in loans a year. We help 5,000 to 10,000 students. 10,000 is the number we hope to help this coming year. 5,000 is who we've helped this past year. And keep growing, and every day is exciting, and we're uplifted by the stories from students we see on our Trustpilot reviews online.
I bet you are. How wonderful. What a great journey and a great project. This is
Thank you.
something that I know many people are hopeful that you will succeed, but many people simply don't understand what the need is. They just don't know it. So I'm glad that we are sharing this. And what is the significance of these students, international students, to these universities?
It's huge. So it's sort of at a macro level, there's about 1 million international students in the US, another 750,000 or so in Canada. Enrollment for international students has been climbing steadily for the past 70 years or so. And they tend to pay sort of full freight in school. So they're very much an important lifeline for universities in the US and Canada at a time where domestic enrollment is going down, and at a time where universities are facing sort of a dual pressure of not having a lot of wiggle room to increase tuition costs, which are already so high, and at the same time, a lot of pressures for more amenities, a nicer stadium, and what seems like 4-star sort of housing complexes on campus for students. And so costs are going up, revenues are fairly sort of steady. And so how do you keep a university afloat? Well, you rely a lot on international students in that case. And these international students come with a huge drive to succeed, impeccable credentials. Oftentimes they raise sort of the average test scores of a university, which are then tied to the rankings of the schools, and God knows how important rankings are for these schools as well. And
Sure.
so that's some of the direct impact on the universities. I'm more passionate about the broader economic impact and then global impact that these students have. They spend about $61 billion on education and tuition related expenses sort of every single year in the US and Canada. And then what's even more exciting is they become sort of the next innovators for a lot of them in the US and Canada. They really become an engine of innovation for the US. If you think about the CEOs of Microsoft or one of the founders of Google, the founder of Tesla, Elon Musk, they're all ex-international students. The CEO of IBM, there's countless examples. So they're really driving our technology companies, driving our growth as a country, driving our competitive advantage on the planet. And that's when they stay. And when they go back to India, China, Mexico, Brazil, these international students become ambassadors for the US and Canada. They go back and they form ties, effectively, informal ambassadors, if you will. They form economic ties with the US and Canada. They form diplomatic ties. They're able to bridge sort of cultural gaps or norms between their home country and the US. And when we think about sort of the conflicts around the planet and how much it helps to have these sort of human bridges scattered across the globe, or whether we think about a lot of the issues we're facing today, climate change being one of them, or pandemics being another, it's important to have minds that think beyond borders. And so these international students add value, not just for the school, not just for the economy, not just for bridges between countries, but really as sort of a vehicle to tackle really global or borderless challenges of tomorrow. So those are when I think about the impact of our work and the ripple effects it can have, that's what I keep in mind.
So where are they coming from to the United States?
80% of the students we finance come from the global south, or emerging markets, if you will. So India and South Asia in general, sub-Saharan Africa with Nigeria and Ghana in particular, Kenya is a third one there. And then Latin America, Brazil, Mexico, and then Colombia, Peru. So those are the primary countries of origin. And then you have a few from Canada, South Korea, Western Europe as well.
Mm. And are they both men and women?
Yeah, the split of students we finance is almost 50-50.
Oh,
The split of international students is closer to, I want to say that the latest stats are closer to 56% men, 44% women. roughly. So a bit of a distortion there. They tend to be, this is interesting, I think, particularly overrepresented compared to domestic students in STEM. So they typically come for very much with gainful employment in mind. So they're studying engineering, mathematics, and other technical disciplines, or they're studying business. They're coming for an MBA. They tend to be heavily weighed in graduate programs, particularly master's degrees. So they're coming for a 1 or 2 years master's. Again, they're coming oftentimes as much for the education as for the job after that education. They want to have an economic impact, both for personal gain, but also to have a real impact in the corporate world or the academic world, wherever they choose to go after their schooling.
When they come to America, do they run into challenges in addition to the financial ones?
Sure. There's sort of a list of all the different challenges they face. I think there's certainly cultural barriers, and more colleges, I think, are aware of this, and international student offices, ISOs, are trying to bridge that gap. There's pathway programs. So there's, depending on where on the planet they come from, there may be a sort of a linguistic challenge. There's cultural challenges and understanding sort of how to operate the academic world. In a lot of countries, there may be more or less collaboration, for instance, between students in various projects. There may be different expectations around the role of a professor versus a student. So sort of this collegial teacher-student environment is not always universal. They face challenges navigating the immigration system in the US, both to come in and show they have proof of funds, etc., to get their F1 visa. And then after they graduate, to get the optional practical training, the 1 to 3 years of sort of visa-free employment they can have. Not even speaking about the H-1B visa that they have to apply for after that. So navigating that system is complicated. And then so we help them with that. And then Power also helps them with yet another area, which is just navigating the financial system in the US. Not all countries have a centralized credit bureau. Not all countries use credit cards in the way we do in the US, for better or worse. And so understanding credit, understanding its sort of importance and its pitfalls is also very important. So yes, they have quite a bit to navigate.
Yes, it sounds like they do. How are they doing with that? Do most of them get through the immigration system?
So a lot of them do, and sadly every year there's thousands of students that don't. Thousands of students who may get admitted to a Georgetown, a UVA, a Yale, a Princeton, a Caltech, and unfortunately they're not able to showcase that they have a full year's worth of tuition and living expenses to their visa officer. And as a result of that, they get declined. And so even though they have the academic potential and literally proved it by getting admitted to these schools, they're unable to attend because of money. And that was really sort of the gripping reason why MPOWER went in business and went to tackle that market. Is there's thousands of students who get in. There's tens or hundreds of thousands of students who could get in, but can't even fathom getting an education in the US or Canada because they just don't have the funds, and they can't fathom where they could possibly get the funds. And so we're trying to bridge that gap so that regardless of how little money people may have in other parts of the world, if they have the academic potential, if they have the bright minds, that they're not left behind and they can really realize their full potential academically and then career and professionally.
Just out of curiosity, what are you doing in New Delhi in India at this time?
So I have sort of 3 reasons to be here. The number one is my wife is Indian, and so my brother-in-law resides in New Delhi, and my daughter is meeting her baby cousin. So they just had a kid. The professional reason is MPOWER's main office, the largest office with 85% of our staff, is actually in Bangalore. So on Tuesday, I'm headed to Bangalore for 2 weeks to meet some of our team members who we hired during COVID. And so I've only met them via Zoom. And it'll be nice to meet people in 3D. And then the third reason, and again, no particular order to these, but India is our #1 market by far. It's about 20% of all the students we finance, and we finance students from 150 countries around the planet. But India on its own is 20% of that. And so it's always important for us to be close to our customers, me personally, to understand the market, to meet some of our customers, to meet some of our partners. And so that's the third reason I'm here.
How many people do work for you and where?
So MPOWER is a team of 200 people today. 85% of that team is based in Bangalore. And then the remaining 15% is in DC, Washington, DC.
I see. Well, this is a large company compared to what you first started all those years ago.
Two people in a PowerPoint deck, absolutely. We've grown a little bit,
Yes.
yes.
To what do you feel you owe your success?
I think the need in the students themselves. So I think a lot of companies, sadly, tech companies in particular, are solutions in search of a problem. I think we saw the problem firsthand. We felt it. We lived it. My co-founder and I. My co-founder was a refugee from Iran, and grew up essentially with very little money in the U.S. and thankfully got a grant to go to Purdue. But so he and his family felt the financial need and then the impact that a higher education had. So I think our sort of the need, the personal drive, has really helped us. I think the investor community, particularly impact investors, I think saw it, as well as mainstream investors. We've always tried to carry that balance. We don't want to be an NGO that relies on external funding. We always wanted to have a very solid sort of unit economics and business plan from the start, and that has served us well. So that's been another area of support. And then I think in 2020, when it felt like the world was falling apart, we were positively shocked by the repayment rate of international students. When we compared ourselves even to sort of the cream of the crop private lenders in the US, so Sallie Mae has very strong credit performance. Our students exceeded that performance. And you would have thought that with all the sort of pressures they had to leave the country, all the challenges they faced, they would have a ton of issues paying back the loan. But in reality, they exceeded expectations. They exceeded their peer performance on that front. And so we owe that growth and the success of the company just to the raw performance and reliability of the international students we serve. And I do think the US over time is recognizing the importance of these students. Like I said, they're a lifeline to universities. They bring socioeconomic and global diversity to classrooms. They're enriching the experience for their American classmates, but they're really the engine of growth for the US and ties, very important ties across the planet at an era where, weirdly or sadly enough, the West and the East seem to take some distance again. So having those ties is all the more important.
Where do you see this going in the next, say, 5 years?
We have a lot to do in our core market, even though we're helping and aspiring to help 10,000 international students next year. There'll be close to 2 million international students in North America next year and 5 million plus globally. So we're still a drop in the bucket. We have a long way to go. We'd like, as we grow up as a company, to become sort of a neobank for global citizens. These students sort of evolve past our loans as they graduate and start needing other products, a car loan, health insurance. They need a mortgage eventually. They need investment products and so on. And no financial institution today is really serving that demographic fully. So this notion of global citizens, typically, they have to put together a patchwork of financial services. They might have a credit card from Capital One with no Forex fees when they go back to their home country. They might have a bank account in the home country, a bank account in the US, but it's very patchy. It involves half a dozen plus sort of financial actors. We'd love to be the one-stop shop financial services solution for them. We think it's a very interesting demographic, a very promising demographic, a very unique demographic in terms of their needs. And we'd like to be that trusted partner for them.
I suspect you will be. Given all that you've done so far, I think it's a no-brainer. Wonderful. Is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't talked about yet?
Um, no, maybe we're always looking to help more students. We provide scholarships, we provide guidance, and so if any of your viewers know of a bright international student who could use extra funds or who needs funds to come to the US and Canada, and our entire application is online at empowerfinancing.com. It takes 15 minutes or less to get a loan offer decision. And it's free also to apply. So there's no sort of downside to it. And like I said, we also offer scholarships to students as well. And then we own an ecosystem of websites, internationalstudent.com, internationalstudentloan.com, IEFA.org, and several others that provide very relevant information to international students around how to find housing, how to navigate as I said earlier, sort of the immigration system in the US and Canada, what to expect in your first year in the US, how to understand sort of the credit system in the US as well, how to deal emotionally with the distance from home and so on. So all these resources are free to use.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. I look forward to maybe talking with you again in a year or so to see how things are going. And um, as I say, I suspect it'll be a great success, and many people will be very grateful for your help, your ability to help them. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so,
A
thank you
pleasure.
so much for having me, Deborah. Cheers and Happy New Year to you and the viewers.
Thank
Cheers.
you. And thank you to our readers and listeners for tuning in and sharing this amazing story and all of the assets that go with it that you can look up online and take advantage of. Thanks again.